Shabbat Shalom. For those who are waiting online, we had a little technical difficulty, but thank you for hanging in there with us, and thank you to Lori for figuring out how to get us back up and running. And I'm pleased to share the Bima tonight with Lee, who will be leading us in music. So, Linda, would you like to come on up and light the Shabbat candles? Yes. I was asked if our fire insurance is paid up, and I will say, yes, it is. So not to worry. Someone must have turned, hold on. Did they unplug it? Testing. Well, just as unplugged. Yeah, just.
Hello.
Yeah. It works.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
So light the candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom. We are going to continue with the singing of Ma Yafeh Hayom, which can be found on page 10.
Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom.
So I just want to say, I was able to figure out 2 microphones. If anything else technical goes wrong tonight,
Well, no.
between the website, the internet and the thing, I don't know, maybe we've exhausted our ability to fix. So hopefully everything else will be nice and smooth. But who knows? We have some handy people here, so. But I've exhausted my knowledge. All right, let's continue on page 6 as we join together on the top of the page. We enter this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into their sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. We're going to continue on page 28 as we rise for the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. And then we will, I was going to say we will remain standing, but actually we will sit down after the Baruch Hu. So please rise as you're able. We're going to continue with our blessing for creation. And if anybody would like to share anything before we read this blessing that you're thinking about tonight that has anything to do with nature or this world, I'll bring the microphone around and folks can share if you have any thoughts.
Well, unfortunately, we lost an old friend today, didn't we?
Well, what he means is, maybe that's why this is on my mind. We had a tree in our backyard. It was about 80 feet tall, and it needed to come down because it was leaning, and eventually it was going to fall down. And so these three men came, and it was pretty amazing because the way our backyard is set up, you can't get any kind of equipment back there or any type of a lift or anything. So this was a crew that came, and although I know at least two of them knew how to do this, I found out that they were all from Guatemala, and at the age of 13, two of them who were brothers started learning this trade at the age of 13. And literally they climbed up the tree, and while they were like just climbed up the tree, like there was, I mean, they had something around them, but not something like, you know, super strong, it didn't appear. But they started to like cut down parts of the tree while they're in the tree. And then it came to this one last limb that was pretty high up in the sky. And this man is literally on the limb of the tree, and he's like cutting like above him, and these big pieces of the limb are like falling off, and like one after the other. And it was like kind of amazing to watch the whole process. And I mean, clearly they have a whole system. They have these other two ropes where they like one guy holds it so that it doesn't fall on a power line, and it's really a craft, you know, it's a skill. And it's pretty impressive to watch them doing it, and no one got hurt, thank God, they were fine. But to see these people climbing trees and then just lopping off these sections. So I guess so it's kind of sad to lose a tree, an 80-foot tree, but it needed to come down because it wasn't as healthy as it should be. And because of its location in the easement, they had previously cut down some limbs so it didn't get into the power lines, which then made the tree lean, which made it more risk of falling. So anyway, after many emails and phone calls, LG&E agreed to take down this tree, and after many months of waiting, the tree is down. So it's both positive and negative at the same time, but just watching these people who are like working with God's handiwork every day is, it's a thing of awe, the way they did that, so. All right, let's join together in Hebrew, page 30. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, bechokma poteach she'arim, uvitbuna mishaneh itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. So next comes Ahavat Olam, and we're going to do a different tune tonight. I think everybody knows that 2 weeks from tonight, on November 15th, is Volunteer Appreciation Shabbat. And I hope that all of you will be available to be with us, if you're able. And I know this is one of the pieces. We can have 9 people, congregants, between vocalists and musicians playing. So I don't know which version of Ahavat Olam will be played, but this is one that somebody asked about, and I said it's really up to the group to decide, but perhaps we'll hear it in 2 weeks, perhaps not. But this one is by Craig Taubman, Ahavat Olam. And it's on page 32, same words, just a different tune.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, B'shochbeinu v'kumeinu, Nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed.
Okay, so Linda, I saw Linda, she'll be one of our musicians that night. So did you guys decide, is this the? Yeah. Cool. All right, so now it's time for Shema Yisrael, the watchword of our faith. Rise physically or spiritually as we continue together, page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leholom, Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated as we join together, page 36, with the chanting of V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha, bless you, v'hayu ha'devarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. We join responsively in the middle of page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and your love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be at one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
Let us sing now Mi Chamocha, page 40.
Yataira bim bam, yataira bim bam, yataira bim bam, yataira bim bam. I die, 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 yataira bim bam. I die, 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 yataira bim bam. Mi chamocha belim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot teifele, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוא כהיום לפני משה ומרים. זה ליאנו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
So tonight is the last Shabbat before our next presidential election. And I know that there are many things that have been causing all of us stress and anxiety, and the election clearly has been one of them. And I think people on whatever side of the aisle they are, whoever their candidate is, are feeling stress and anxiety and uncertainty, and I would say even fearful of the outcome. And in the beginning books of Genesis, I mean, we're only in the second Torah portion, and we already have things that have happened that are not very good, right? We have Noah, which is this week's Torah portion, the flood, and the violence between two brothers, Cain and Abel. And it's asked, why does the Torah start this way, right? And there are other things that happen too, and one of the answers is that perhaps God is warning us. God is letting us know the nature of human beings, because God just created us, right? And we're only on chapter 7 by the time we get to Parshat Noach. So maybe God felt he needed to let us know that there will be times when life isn't all going to be a bowl of cherries, as they say. And so I think that tonight, in addition to our singing Hashkivenu, which we will hear on Spotify, and I hope you got a handout on the way in, but I would also like to read it in English on page 42, because perhaps we just need an extra measure of asking God to watch over us and keep us safe. So let's join together in English. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our guardians, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, for your name's sake. Be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming, to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Hashkivenu by Dan Nichols. I love those birds chirping at the end. Which brings me back to where we were earlier with Ma'ariv Arvim in the nature. If anybody needs firewood, let me know, because they took all the branches, but the big stump is like in pieces, so let us know when it's yours for the taking. Let's continue on page 44 with the singing of Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
So we are going to rise for the Amidah beginning on page 46. And I just want to remind everybody that when we get to page 50, we are going to chant the winter insert that begins on Simchat Torah, now that Sukkot has passed. In Israel, the hope is that there will be a lot of rainfall in this winter, during these winter months, to get them through all of next summer. So we continue on 46.
Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor veHanorah, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו ביהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם לעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל תרע להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומוצמיך ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים לך יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הקדוש.
Please be seated. We're going to continue on page 55 as we join together on the top of the page. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Page 57. The middle of the page, let's continue together. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Our prayer for peace, Shalom Rav, can be found on page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon Lecho hashalom, ki atahu melech Adon, lecho hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Veto b'neinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'cho ed u'b'cho shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rahava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Thank you, Lee. At this time, we call to mind our loved ones who need our prayers for healing. Our prayers are with Fran Skall, Gerald Barron, Wes Gersh, Paul Tackett, Diane Levine, Chassia Haberman, Adam Carrico, Bogi Terzieva, Ed Gould, Sherry Davies, the men and women of the U.S. Armed Forces, the men and women of the IDF, the hostages who have been held in Gaza for 392 days, the Israelis who continue to be displaced from their homes and to experience missile and rocket attacks from multiple fronts, the innocent Palestinians and Lebanese who are suffering because of the war that started on October 7th with a terrorist attack, and all who are still trying to put their lives back together following Hurricanes Helene and Milton. If you'd like to add the loved ones, other loved ones for us to keep in our prayers, please feel free to say their names aloud at this time.
People of Ukraine, Sudan, and the United States.
We ask that God bring healing to our loved ones, to those of us who need prayers of healing, and let us join together in the middle of page 253 with our Mishaberach prayer for healing.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue silently with Tefillat Halev, the prayers of our own heart.
Ose shalom bimromav, hoyase shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru Hose shalom bimromav, hoyase shalom aleinu, ויעקב ויעקב ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. ויעקב ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. ויעקב ויעקב ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
Thank you, Lee. So as I said during the service, I made reference to the beginning of the Torah. And I also talked during the service about the anxiety and some of the emotions and the fear that some of us are feeling with less than a week to the election. And even though some of these prayers that we read in this prayer book, because let's face it, there's service 1 and service 2, service 1 and service 2, we don't have many options. So we read many passages over and over, but for some reason tonight, some of them are just really sticking out to me, and it's almost feeling like there's a pattern. So which we read already together, but I'll just read a bit. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace. And unfortunately, there are so many ways that we can understand that and relate to that today. And then there's this request, which we also read, grant us, O God, that we lie down in peace. Guard us, shield us, defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Again, this asking, this recognition, this realizing that there are challenging times and dangerous times during life, and that we turn to God and say, God, watch over me, protect me, help me, us. When we finish the Avot Ve'imahot, which we do every week, the last line is Baruch Ata Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Blessed are you, Adonai, the shield of Abraham and the helper of Sarah, right? Magen Avraham, right? The shield, it's like implies a vision somehow of war, right? Of clearly of having to defend oneself. Again, that being vulnerable. And then helping Sarah, which could be taken in many ways, but it also could mean like, I need help, right? That's the basic concept, that I need help. And then, therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you and find courage, insight, endurance. Just in those prayers alone, there's this awareness that we're vulnerable. There's that awareness of we live in a world of uncertainty. And it's true, we do. And unfortunately, at this time, we're really experiencing it and feeling it in an intensified way. And I know it's not only adults. I know it's young people as well. And they understand it to the degree that they are able, but there is this sense of that this election is going to really be impactful. And that there's a lot to lose. Many feel there's a lot to lose. Well, I think both sides probably feel there's a lot to lose if their candidate doesn't get elected. And as I said in the beginning of Genesis, if we even just go to chapter 4, right? I mean, we start being created in chapter 1, and we're not even that far, and we have Cain, who is jealous of his brother Abel. Cain ends up being a farmer. He tills the soil, and Abel has flock. And so when they bring their offering, Cain feels that his fruit of the soil is not as grand, shall we say, as the flock that his brother can bring. And what does he do? Cain kills Abel. Genesis chapter 4, we haven't gotten far. And God asked Cain, where is your brother? And he says, I don't know. And then the famous line, am I my brother's keeper? And then we come, of course, to Noah, and Cain and Abel were last week's Torah portion. And we're already told before Noah is told to build the ark, the law saw how great was man's wickedness on earth, and how every plan devised by his mind was nothing but evil all the time. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and God's heart was saddened. And God says, I will blot out from the earth the people whom I created, the people and the beasts, the creeping things, the birds of the sky. I regret that I made them. But then there's Noah, who finds favor in God's eyes. And we know that the Torah tells us that Noah was an ish tzaddik, a righteous man, but we also know there's that clause, right, bedorotav, he was righteous in his generation, meaning if he had lived at another time, he might not have stood out as being so righteous, but amongst those whom he lived, he was. And then the earth is corrupt, and there's lawlessness, and then there is the flood. But also at the end of the flood, we know ultimately there's this rainbow, and it's the sign of this covenant that God says that I will never destroy the earth again by water. And we know that they come off of the ark and they come to dry land. Yes, many have perished, but humanity goes on, continues. And when we think of this time, when we think about what's happening with the war with Israel, the huge loss of life, the insecurity, the fear on both sides, when we think of which we know is real, the huge rise in anti-Semitism, and then we think back to what our people have gone through, we think back to the world, and we are living in times that for us are different than what most of us have experienced. That doesn't mean we never experienced anti-Semitism. That doesn't mean that there weren't elections in the past where we really felt, oh, we really want this candidate to win over the other. But it feels like there's this combination of that and the internet, and other countries are interfering, and we know that there are algorithms, so people are fed on the internet that same message over and over, and it helps divide us and separate us. And when I was at that conference in Pittsburgh, it was so uplifting to see so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people from literally around the world, different walks of life, some in law enforcement, some in mental health, some in education, Department of Justice, Homeland Security, government officials, not just from our country, but other countries, clergy, people who were in hate groups, who have left hate groups. people who are coming up with these amazing online games to counter the hate. I don't know how, I'm not a gamer, and I'm guessing that most of you aren't. Maybe some of your grandkids are, or great-grandkids, but there's a lot of hate, and I just don't mean like shoot 'em up. I mean, they say that of the gamers, that the decent percent of minors have interfaced with white supremacists online. There's a lot of anti-Semitism, there's a lot of misogyny, there's a lot of other types of hate embedded into these games. And somebody actually created this game where you actually learn about the Holocaust. And he said, 80% of the people in this country never go to a Holocaust museum. They don't go. 80% of Americans will never step foot in one. But he has this game that allows. So there were people doing stuff on the internet. I mean, it was just so uplifting to see how many people spent days presenting and listening and learning and hearing what is happening out there, interfaith opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. And so while there is this heaviness, we need to remember that there's also this other side too, this rainbow, this lightness that can be there, and something to hold on to, and the power of prayer. Doesn't mean that prayer is going to determine the election, but it can bring us comfort or solace. It can be a source of comfort for us. Just to feel like, okay, God, I don't know how this is going to work out, but, I need your help getting through this, for example. God, show me how to deal with this, with this anti-Semitism. Help me keep my family safe, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a reality that we are confronted with. And I know personally how I hope things will go next week. Each person here has their own idea of how they hope things will go next week. However things go, I pray that there won't be the type of violence that there's talk that it could be. I don't want to use the word civil war. I know it's been thrown out there. But the violence of not accepting the election results, the intimidation of people who want to vote. There's already been ballot boxes on fire. I mean, there is violence. We can't pretend it's not there. The question is, how do we handle it? And I certainly don't have a great answer, but I think that coming together, being part of a community, talking, saying aloud how we're feeling, getting support from people, and for me too, and perhaps for some of you, prayer. Just knowing that there's a creator, this power who created the world, right? And we're still here. The earth is millions of years old. Despite all the wars, all the dictators, all the terrorists, human beings, we are still here. And we need to somehow trust that we will get through somehow, some way. Because when we come back next Friday night, we know that in about 30 days there will be someone different as President of the United States. And that leads me to one last thing I want to share with you tonight that has to do with the prayer for our country. We know our prayer books have prayers for our country. And I read an article today in JTA written by someone named David Zvi Kalman, who works for the Shalom Hartman Institute. It was called Why I Wrote a Prayer to be Said on the Shabbat Before Election Day. And he talked about the history, a bit of the history of Jewish people praying for their leaders. And I'm going to read this one paragraph, quoting him directly. He said, "It's obvious how we got to this place," meaning of having prayers for the country, the king, the executive, the minister, whatnot, in our prayer books. And he said, "So it's obvious how we got to this place. The standard Hebrew text of the prayer for the government is more than 500 years old, long predating modern democracy. Prior to emancipation, the unelected rulers under which all Jews lived had an oversized role in determining their fate. In Europe, Jews often held the legal status of servants of the royal chamber. This relationship left Jews particularly vulnerable to the whims of kings and queens. A version of the prayer printed in Spain in 1490 lists the monarch as Fernando, the very ruler who would expel the country's Jews just 2 years later. In such circumstances, praying for the government is best understood as a disenfranchised minority's plea that the people who could make their lives miserable would leave them to be in peace." And we have a prayer in our prayer book, which will be how I conclude my remarks this evening. But what he talked about is, in the article, is that why is there no prayer for us, right? We're the voters. Why shouldn't there be a prayer that says that conveys the hope that voters will have the wisdom to select good leaders who will guide the country justly and righteously? And it was an interesting thought, because we are in a time now of a democracy where we get to vote, right? Like I said, when prayer books, Jewish prayer books first started having a prayer for the leader of the country, it was because there was no democracy. They didn't vote. So it's an interesting thought to have a prayer that's for those of us who vote. But the article, for some reason, did not contain this person's prayer, and I looked for it on the internet, and I did not find his prayer for the voters. So what I will do, which our people have done for hundreds of years, is I will read a prayer for our country. If you'd like to follow along, it's 258. I'm going to read the one on the bottom of the page. 258. O God of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and may our country be sound in body and spirit. And let us say together, Amen. Tomorrow morning we'll be here at 10:30. For those who want to play Mahjong or learn Mahjong, it's this Sunday from 2 to 4. I already mentioned Volunteer Appreciation Shabbat, but I'm going to ask you to please RSVP if you can be here for dinner, which I hope most of you will be. It's at 5:30. It's being catered by Ladyfingers. It should be a very nice dinner. There will be a vegetarian option. 5:30 and 7 o'clock will be services, and as I mentioned, we're going to have 9 congregants providing music that night, so it should be really, really lovely. The following week, November 22nd, I've mentioned it before, but I'll mention again, I hope you can be here. We're going to have 2 guests from Israel, one Jewish, one Muslim, talking about their efforts to live together and coexist, especially at this time, makes it even harder. Our next Lunch and Learn is November 19th. It just went out in today's email blast, so the information is there and where to RSVP. Also in the email blast is the announcement. It was in our High Holy Day service booklets, but Joel Chasnoff is coming back for comedian and conversation. So there is, obviously Friday night services are free. He'll be speaking, but if you want to come to the lunch or to the comedy show, there is a fee, so please check the email blast. Also, a reminder, if you have not yet filled out the High Holy Day survey, I hope you will do so. There is the link to the High Holy Day survey in this week's email blast. Whether you attended one service or every service, whether you attended virtually, in person, or a combination thereof, please answer the questions. Everything is anonymous, and unless you choose to leave your name, but that's not at all required. And the ritual committee will take a look, and based on the results, make, see how we could do things differently if we need to do changes to accommodate the congregation. So please take a few minutes. It's really quick and easy. I want to thank, once again, Lori for streaming services. I want to thank Lee for leading us on music, and for those who are virtual, glad you're with us as well. We are going to continue in the middle of page 282 with Aleinu L'Shabeach. Please rise physically or spiritually.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא שנוא כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומשה יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכנתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו, הוא אלוהינו, הם מלכנו, אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אלוהיך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל
call to mind our loved ones who are no longer physically with us but live on in our hearts and our minds, in our memories. If you are here to recite Kaddish for a loved one, you're invited to rise when their name is read aloud. Tonight we remember Jack Barmack, Bonnie Beiser, Dorothy Brown, Cyril Charn, Lawrence Friedman, Ada Grossman, Dorothy Hartung, Elizabeth Isler, Maury Klawans, Eugene Michel, Stephen Muldean, Miriam Sherman, Esther Simons, Edward Zimmerman. We're in a period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning for Jay Tyson and David Rosenberg. Zichronam levracha, may their memories be for a blessing, and may they rest in peace as we rise together as a congregation, praising God's holy name with the Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divarach hirotei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam v'omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran b'alma v'yimeru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimeru, amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say together, amen. Please be seated. Now this is Noah's Ark.
The Lord told Noah, there's gonna be a floody, floody. Lord told Noah, there's gonna be a floody, floody.
Get those children out of the muddy, muddy children.
And that's going to be our send-off tonight.
Amen, Arky, Arky, Noah. To build him an Arky, Arky made it out of hickory, barky, barky children of the Lord. The animals, they came in by twosies and bulls. They came in by twosies, elephants and kangaroos, children of the Lord. It rained and poured for 40 days, rained and poured for 40 days, almost struggles and was crazy, crazy children of the Lord. The sun came out and dried up the landy, there's the sun. It dried up the landy, everything was fine and dandy, children of the Lord. So rise and shine and give God the glory, glory.
Rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. Rise and shine and give God the glory, glory, children of the Lord.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's like a once a year, that you can and Lechi Lach is like